the second half? Has it maybe gotten worse since then or better, and is he feeling okay?
Well, I'm not sure if it's gotten better because in practice yesterday, he still fought through practice. Didn't show any problems with the shoulder, but then towards the end of practice, I could kind of tell that he was grabbing it a little bit. But hopefully he'll be ready to go tomorrow. We're going to continue to keep monitoring it day by day and see how it feels for tomorrow.
Kind of over the last few weeks, you've said that this team needs luck multiple times with injuries. You said on Rothstein's podcast and in here last week, is there almost a sense of relief to now have Isaiah back and kind of the full team healthy at once?
I'm staying on my knees every night. And I'm also thanking God every morning for good health, not only just for myself and my family, but obviously for others, and then most importantly, my players. And the season is a pretty long season, so basketball is a very physical game. At times, you can't predict when the injury will happen. It just happens, and you hate when it happens to your team.
James?
Juwan, 3 seasons ago when Xavier and John were freshmen, they were kind of in a similar position this team is in now. I guess as you're trying to make a mid-season push, how vital is it to have guys who have experience with kind of seen kind of what it takes to kind of be a mid-season push?
It's great to have seniors on your team that have been through the battles, that had the experience of the highs and lows, that have competed on the road, have been through duress situations where they have fought through adversity. Adversity is not new to them. So fortunate for us, 2 of our best players are seniors, and then we have Isaiah, who's a junior, who's also had the experience, as well as Eli. So, we will keep plugging away. We know that every game starting tomorrow throughout the season, what's left of the season is very important.
I guys talk about the importance this time where being a player by the team. Have you seen some upperclassmen?
Man, I have a beautiful team, and I mean that beautiful in, from just their mindset to how they compete out there on the court, how they approach practice, how they approach, when teams make runs and they hear the communication in the huddles, how they try to find solutions during the timeouts, in practice, in film sessions. So the communication with our group has been great.
Go ahead, Ron.
David had a few tough games before Saturday, and points gave a spark off the bench. What did you see between this Michigan State, and how can you sustain that going forward?
Well, David has been rock solid all year. Yes, some will look at the stats and say, okay, well, look at the points of how many points he scored. I don't look at it from that point of view. I look at it as far as what he's doing out there on the floor to help the team and affect the game in any kind of way to give us the best chance to win. I recognize in practice each and every day that David has that approach, that he comes in with the right attitude to work, to improve. Just like yesterday, for example, we had a really good conversation. He called me and he said, "Hey, Coach, man, let's get ready for today. I'm all in. You can never, ever second guess or think that I'm not all in." And I said, "David, I have not once been afraid or have guessed or assumed that you're not." So it's beautiful that our players are okay and comfortable with communicating with me.
Oh, go ahead, Brendan.
You've mentioned a lot of times throughout the course of the year, the character of your guys and just the type of team you have. You just used the word beautiful to kind of describe how they are. How much did you know about that before you took the job, and then how long did it take to kind of maybe realize that you think this group's pretty special?
Well, from looking from afar, yes, I was not here last year, but I heard the rumors of it's a great group, high character kids. They work hard, they're fun, enjoy the coach, and I heard that from some of the interviews by Coach Beeline. And then when I got hired, I did my own background check and just to get the climate of the group and get to know some of the guys, and everything kept coming back to me. You're gonna enjoy coaching this group. And then we had our first workout July 3rd, and I saw that this was a special group, and I haven't once second-guessed it or looked back because, just how they responded to adversity with injuries, and then to have a great start of the season, and then for us to drop 4 in a row, it was perfect time for guys to point the finger and lose trust, but I haven't felt that at all. They've always came in with the attitude of like, hey, how can we get better? What can we do better? Have owned it, never made excuses, and then also was all about trying to be solution based.
Max?
Isaiah mentioned that during the game that he tightened up a little bit, was a little bit sore, a little bit winded, nothing serious, but just sort of first game back stuff. How's he doing after the fact, and how's his recovery going?
Oh, his recovery's going good. Yesterday he had some treatment and had a little practice, and I got a good report that he's feeling good today. So we're going to practice today, manage his workload, and hopefully tomorrow he'll feel good and fresh to compete against Northwestern.
Andrew?
Juwan, I think like maybe the average person looks at Northwestern, they see they're at the bottom of the Big Ten, 1 win in the last couple months, I guess. What do you see to know that you can't be overlooking them?
I see a very competitive team that has shown throughout the season that they're capable of putting together some wins. They're capable of playing hard from start to finish. They are so capable of making sure that you can go home with a sad face, and that's something that we want to prevent from happening. I've had a chance to watch them play versus Purdue, and another close game, which Northwestern at some point was leading in that ball game, and Purdue was fortunate enough to get a game winner at the end of the game. Watched Rutgers at Rutgers. We all know Rutgers' record at home. Northwestern was leading in that game by a lot of points, and they lost the game in overtime. Also watched them versus Ohio State, where they were leading in that game. Also peeked in on the game versus Wisconsin, where they were ahead in that game. So it's a scary team, and we cannot afford to take anyone lightly. We do not look at the records of the ball club. We look at our matchups, personnel, and what can we do to compete at a high level from start to finish.
And I know the gym isn't in Chicago, but it's nearby. I guess, do you anticipate seeing any familiar faces that you haven't in a while with the game? Or?
Yeah, I'm sure there are going to be a lot of folks that I know that I grew up either knowing in the neighborhood or growing up in the basketball courts or relatives. I know how to manage when it comes to the ticket request. This is not my first rodeo. I played in the NBA and played in Chicago before the playoffs. So versus the Chicago Bulls, and they had Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Rodman and crew. So I know how to handle distractions. I will not have any distractions. If you're getting at that.
No, I was not getting it.
Abigail?
Juwan, a few weeks ago you were talking about how your guys aren't maybe communicating as much as you would like them to. Now you're saying they're at least talking more. How have you seen that play out in the last few games?
Well, I've seen it where it's when you are communicating out there on the floor, that it can result in giving you a very active, engaging defense. Just for example, on Saturday, our defense was really good because of the fact that not only we were playing physical and we were playing with a lot of energy and effort, but we did a really good job of communication out there on the floor. That has to be a consistency throughout this team, and it can't be inconsistent at all whatsoever. We can't take that part lightly. They know I'm always stressing communication.
Josh?
There was an image floating around on Twitter over the weekend of you embracing David after the game. I'm just curious, if you can, what the message was shared between you two, and as a head coach, what kind of, how does that, how do you feel about those moments? What do they mean to you?
Well, Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, thank you. You know, it was a moment where I saw David heading towards the tunnel to go walk to the locker room, and I looked over to my right, and I just recalled throughout the game David, who had affected the game in a lot of ways, not just the offensive end where he scored 10 points, but defensively how hard he was working, guarding against one of the best players in the country, Cassius, and doing a pretty good job of making every shot attempt or catch on the floor tough for Cassius. Cassius had to work for every bucket that he received out there on the floor on Saturday. So David was a guy who also gave us a big spark in the first half. So I was just so proud of how he competed, and I just wanted to acknowledge him and let him know that as a team and the coach, thank you for all the hard work. And you know, the hug was an embrace of, you know, he knows it. I love him. I love all my guys, and that's what that energy and that hug meant.
And kind of along that same line with David, there was a short clip of him going viral where he smacked the floor on the defensive end too, and just that kind of energy like you've been talking about, that he does things maybe if his stats aren't super eye-opening on a box score. How important is it for an underclassman to kind of bring that energy when maybe the minutes aren't necessarily always going to be consistent and you're in the rotation but you're coming off the bench?
Yes, every guy on our roster wants to play, and I would love to play each and every one of them because I trust that each guy can help provide something on the floor for us to give us a competitive advantage. And I witnessed that. You guys witnessed that when we played CJ. I played CJ at Nebraska, and so I'm not afraid of putting any guy in the game. But I do recognize, as a young player, underclassmen who worked extremely hard throughout the summertime and shown some flashes of a starter in this, in this competitive conference, and probably could start for some schools, but he's playing behind guys like a senior Simpson as well as a junior Brooks. But David hasn't once not walked in the door and competed, has not came in practice and bring that effort and that attitude of how can he improve. And so if he continues with that type of mindset, which I know he will, I just see like years to come. He has 2 more years, and we have 2 more years to teach him and develop him. That I see some really great things happening for David here at the University of Michigan, where hopefully, and I know a big goal of his is to play on the next level. I would do wherever I can to help him get to that dream.
You mentioned Dave's defensive effort, but Franz was extremely active on the defensive end of the floor against Michigan State.
I told you guys all year that Franz not only can score the ball and talented, the guy's a 2-way player.
Yeah, I guess how important was his defensive effort, considering it may not have reflected on the box sheet for people that are that look over it.
It was huge. It's been that way since when he first started playing. His first game was in the Bahamas, and everyone talked about when we're going to see Franz put up some numbers, big numbers, and Franz was competing his tail off on the defensive end and affecting the game in a lot of ways of being active. So, the Michigan State game, he had his imprint on that game, and by him taking that charge, that right there was huge, sacrificing his body, hitting the floor for a loose ball, being the first to hit the floor on a loose ball, not concerned with how many shots he's getting. He's just doing whatever it takes to do his job to help the team win. And with that type of mindset, a player like that who's extremely positive, and he has been positive throughout the year, a coach's dream and his teammates' dream is to have a guy like that on your side who you can trust in the trenches with you.
Brandon got a chance to start 9 games, but I'm curious how that freshman aided his development, like a lot of minutes, made plays, got to play from mistakes.
Yeah, it's helped a lot with his confidence, with his rhythm and his feel. When you're playing and getting minutes, you have no reason but to improve. And Brandon is another guy who, high character guy and never never come in with a attitude about me. He's always been a giver to see how he can help the team. He asks questions, film sessions, he's always not only seeking myself for individual film sessions, but Sadi Washington, one of my assistant coaches who works with him as well in film sessions. But Brandon, he's a big part of our team.
Brandon, you want to close this out?
I've just noticed a small detail about Franz's game where he happens to tip rebounds to his teammates a lot. I wondered if that's something that he just does naturally. Did you teach him that? Is that something he's just crafty with? Like he seems to, if he can't get both hands on it, he has a knack to tip it to open guys.
Well, I have a saying, throughout the team that if you can't grab it with two hands, and you see that a teammate is going for a rebound and he cannot grab it, and you cannot grab it, try to tip it to one of your teammates.
So that's you. That's not him. Okay. All right, good.
On that note, we're all set.
All right, I'm going.